It is time for your Win podcast for super busy professionals sharing transformational moments. Your host, Chu Tang.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Your Win podcast. Today, I have my special guest, Lee, with me. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey, Lee, I know you have a very special transformational moment. Would you mind sharing with our audience?
I think my transformational moment would be a little spoiler alert, looking into my daughter's eyes. That's the moment that changed everything for me. My story has not been an easy one. And I'm just going to start from the beginning to tell my story. So here it goes. Mom died. That is the first line of my autobiography journey in Three Suitcases. I was born and raised in Israel. I joined my brother, who is 6.5 years my senior. I had wonderful father, loving mother, and my mother waited 6.5 years for me to come. A lot of people tell me that I was her blessing, I was her gift, and she was a wonderful person. At the age of 12, about a month after my bat mitzvah, my mother died of cancer. I remember I stepped over my friend's house when my father came and picked me up. And in a car with my brother driving, he said, "Mom died." I cried and I held nothing back. We all cried together. This has been a very traumatic moment in my life, and it still is. It's extremely difficult, and every day it is a battle for me. Sometimes things happen that makes it easier, but it's always a battle. That happened in November of 1989. In June of 1990, my father, brother, and I flew to Miami, Florida to visit a family friend who lives there. It was a chance for us to clear our head, to step back a little bit, to reevaluate our next move. In that time, when we were there, the family friend introduced my father to this woman. And one day, that woman, who has 3 daughters, invited us over to her house to celebrate her youngest daughter's birthday, who was 8 at the time. And about 2 months after, that woman and my father secretly married. So within a year, I lost my mother, I lost my home, I lost my friends, I lost most of my family, and I eventually lost my freedom, and I almost lost my sanity, but that's later to come. And I'm in this new country with no family, no friends, no language. I did not know English at all, except for what I've been taught in the 4th grade in Israel, which isn't much. And it was very difficult and traumatic for me to adjust to this new life and new school. And it was very I was very lonely, and I did not know how to handle all this sudden change, traumatic change, that I had to get used to really fast. And just like in Cinderella, I had a Cinderella inspired relationship with my new stepmother and my stepsisters. We're about the same age, so we got along a little bit, but I was still the odd duck. I was the weird stepsister that didn't belong. And I was dealing with anger issues. I did not know how to handle all these emotions. A 13-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl should not know how to handle this type of loss. But I didn't know how to express myself. And behavioral problems led me to going to psychiatrists, a few of them, actually. One of them recommended a treatment facility, which turned out to be a mental institution, one of many. I entered the first institution, and in each one of them, it was the same set of people, whether it's alcoholics or drug addicts or even pedophiles. And it became to be a revolving door. It was an institution and home. And when I say home, because living with my father, his new wife, and my new stepsisters wasn't really home for me. So I would just say, for lack of a better word, home. And it was institution, home, institution, and that was my life. And in each place that I went to, the list of medication grew, and it turned me into a zombie. And actually, one of the places that I took medication, it really blew me up, and I almost lost sight in my left eye. And it was then, looking back at it, I hit rock bottom, and I fought, and I'm still fighting my demons to this day. It's something that I will probably have to deal with for the rest of my life. The pain is never going to go away. When somebody asks you, how do you get over a mother's death? You don't. You just have to learn how to deal with it. And one of the places that I was at, I call it Alcatraz. It was not an island per se. There was no barbed wire. There was no fence. It was in the middle of nowhere in a city called Hilliard, Florida, which is about 30 minutes north of Jacksonville. The director there, Doug Atkins, did not like me very much, but for him, I was a paycheck from the state. So he kept me there, and he forbade me from speaking Hebrew with my father, the only connection I had, because he thought we were up to no good. And I'm just going to tell you, he was not wrong. And I'm fast forwarding a bit, because this was the rock bottom that I've experienced. In 1998, I escaped Alcatraz. It's called, the real name is called Day Spring Village. I escaped Alcatraz to Israel. But I had to move back to Miami to finish up some sort of paperwork for my citizenship, for my American citizenship. And while I was there in Miami, living in my father's home with his wife and her daughters, one day I went to the local movie theater. And while I was sitting there watching a movie, a man came in, asked me if my name was Lee Granot, which was my name back then. And before I could even understand who this person is and why is he bothering me in the middle of the movie, I felt handcuffs on my hands. I had a guardian from the state, and I'm not going to get into it now because it's a really long story. That guardian sent a couple of detectives to arrest me because I ran away from Day Spring Village. And when that officer led me outside to the unmarked police car, they also put shackles on my legs so I wouldn't run away. So from Miami back to Jacksonville, an 8-hour trip. My father did not know where I was. He tried to contact me. He bought me a beeper. Kids beeper is something that does not exist anymore. So it kept on going off. But I couldn't call him back because I was in the back of a police car with 2 detectives who were driving me to God knows where.
And you were 13, 14 that time?
I was actually, this was much later. I was already 18. And the reason that I still had a guardian is because I was considered mentally ill. So the police took me to another mental institution where they took my belt and my loose shoelaces, and they put me on a stretcher, tied up.
So this is without your dad's consent?
Obviously without my dad's consent. There was only one person who knew where I was at the time besides the guardian. I'm not gonna say who it is. I'm just gonna let you guess. And I was in that place for 8 days. 8 days that my father did not know where I was. 8 days that he did not know if I'm alive or dead or arrested or God knows where. After 8 days, I finally got in touch with him. And a little bit after that, again, I escaped back to Israel. And I started my new life at the age of 21. I was trying to find my place in the world. I was working in odd jobs here and there. I was attempting to learn, but I was still angry. And I didn't know how to handle being free. I was worried that if my brother, who I lived with back then in Israel, couldn't reach me, I was afraid that he might get worried or whatnot. And I didn't understand that it's okay for me to walk down the street. It's okay for me to take the bus wherever I wanted to. I didn't know how to handle that freedom. And eventually, after a little bit, I went back to Miami to win back my freedom, to get rid of this guardianship because I was already an adult.
Yeah, right.
And I eventually went back my freedom, but I was still trapped in my head with anger and with hate and with all these negative energies and these negative thoughts and feelings. And I didn't know how to handle it. And during that time, it was sort of a ping pong between Israel and Miami, trying to find my place in the world. And I couldn't find it. Eventually, I went back to Israel in 2006. And in 2010, I met a person who was able to help me find love. And he was my best friend. He was my friend, and then my best friend, and then my partner, and then my husband. And he was able to helped me understand how wonderful and beautiful and smart and amazing I am. And before, I'm going to go back a little bit, before my mother died, she had a little ribbon that said, "Life begins in 40." And my ribbon would say, "My life begins at 41 and a day." And that's when my daughter Ella came into this world. She is 5.5 years old today. And she's amazing. And I believe that she is a gift that my mother sent to me. Because I realized a little while ago that my mother and I were pregnant at the same time period, because my birthday is October 3rd and Ella's birthday is October 4th. So, and I thought that my mother left me, and she didn't. She's with me, and she's in my daughter's eyes. And yes, I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to find my way in the world, but having somebody who understands me, who helps me, who is beside me, and who accepts me, that's very helpful. That's the greatest gift that I can get. And I realized another thing, that my stepmother may be part of the story. She started it all, but she's not part of the journey. The minute I forgave myself, I realized how much power I have, and I'm no longer mad at her. I'm no longer mad at the other people who did what they did to me, because it doesn't matter. It only matters what I feel about myself and the life that I'm living with my husband and my daughter and our 6 pets.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this heartwarming, transformational journey, not moment, journey.
Yes, definitely.
Wow. And I really, when I read your book, I think I read it in like one weekend. I'm such a slow reader, but then your book, once I opened it, I just couldn't put it down. And I'm so grateful that you're going to share that with our audience too. So I guess I will put your link, and then they will have a copy of your book too. Yeah. And I didn't know, I mean, before reading your book, I didn't know about, the institution, how they really take your freedom, even in US.
Yes.
Even in US, even in Miami.
I got lost in a system. I was just another number. I was just another file for my guardian. He didn't care.
And then
I was just another paycheck to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of you that you get out of that, because it's so difficult to lose your parent when you were, your mother when you were 12 years old, because I could relate to it a little bit, because I lost my dad when I was 10. Yeah, but then I have my family support, and all that. Yeah, so yeah. Wow, thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah, so if you guys like this episode, come back, and until then, stay happy and hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my biggest dream is to share the story with Drew Barrymore. And a few years ago, somebody asked me, if you were to do a movie about your life, who would it be? And half jokingly, I said Drew Barrymore. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that she is an amazing person. She overcame her own demons. And she did it all in front of the camera, because she was very famous from a very young age. And she is the strongest and the most wonderful person that I get to see on the screen. And it will be amazing to share my story with her and share my story with the world, because there may be a girl out there, or maybe a teenage person out there that is
Yeah.
battling with self-esteem and confidence,
Yeah.
that could understand that they're
Yeah.
not alone.
Yeah.
And that would be great to share it with the world.
Yep. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the stage and this opportunity to tell my story. I
Oh,
really
fantastic.
do appreciate that very much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share. See you soon at Your Win Podcast.